Choosing Home by ginnyrules27, Chapter 19. Mal grit her teeth as she paced Ben's office furiously, feeling like a caged dragon longing to take flight. The constant movement jostled her arm, sending a shooting pain to her brain every few minutes, but she was too angry to care. Freddie was still alive. He would be going back to the Isle rather than live in torment for the rest of his days in the pits of Tartarus. More importantly, at some point Audrey would be going there with him. There wasn't one aspect of this that was a punishment for Freddie. He'd be in charge of his gang, he'd have his fling, and what's more, he could enact a plan to escape once more. While a logical part of her acknowledged that Freddie's death hadn't been discussed or even an option, that really didn't matter to the rest of her. She was furious.
Mal, stop pacing and talk to me,
Ben said, his eyes following her every move. It really was late, and he was exhausted, ready to head to bed for once. But that clearly wasn't an option at this point.
I thought this was a good thing. Freddie's going back to the Isle, and Audrey will too once we learn whether or not she's pregnant.
A good thing? Ben, all we did was send an alive and probably bent on revenge Freddie to the Isle. He broke out of there once. He could break out again, Mal exclaimed.
Okay, so why didn't you make the suggestion for a different punishment when Eric asked for it?
Maybe because I was a little surprised that you abstained? Ben, how many times have we suggested you take a break from something, only to have you say that you're the king and should be the one to handle it?
Hold on, wasn't it you who told me we were questioning Audrey, that no one would look down on me if I did abstain? But now you're mad at me for doing just that? Ben asked, more than slightly confused.
There's a difference between abstaining in the questioning of your former girlfriend and abstaining from running the trial of a maniac, Ben exclaimed.
Mal's got a good point,
Uma nodded, lounging on the sofa as Harry draped his arms over her shoulders, Estelle resting his head on her leg. Ben didn't know if that was a way for Harry to show affection, or a way for them to prevent him from running after Freddie and hooking him.
Ben sighed and ran a hand through his hair. If I didn't abstain, Freddie could have argued that the trial was biased against him and petitioned for a new one. And if he didn't, Audrey certainly would have. She's been raised royal since birth. She knows the system inside and out.
Who would have listened to his petition? You're the king of Auradon, Mal exclaimed. And, by the way, can't you offer a harsher sentence than life imprisonment to the guy who tried to kill you?
Should we step in?
Lonnie whispered to Jay, the older boy having run over to Evie's castle to get the others after the trial. That had been an hour ago, back when Mal had first started pacing.
Nah, Mal's ranted for much longer before. She'll wear herself out soon.
Jay shook his head.
It's just not the way we do things here, Mal,
they heard Ben say, and it was clear that he was getting more than a little frustrated. Though, to be fair, it had been a rather long day, and they could all use some rest.
If I order a different punishment, I thereby tell the other members of my council that I don't trust their judgment.
Well, considering their judgment was to leave Freddie alive, I'm not sure I trust their judgment, Mal stated, content in trying to pace a rut into Ben's office floor.
We have a system in place for a reason,
Ben said, shaking his head.
This isn't the Isle of the Lost, Mal.
That proved to be the wrong thing to say as Mal paused, turning to look at him, her green eyes bright with rage. Believe me, I know that, she growled. If we were on the Isle and Freddie had been accused of even one of those crimes, he'd have been hyena chow before you could blink.
Uma snorted. This coming from the girl who didn't want us to kill him after he tried to kill you because you didn't want to start a gang war.
Oh, she may have looked calm, but she was just as furious about Freddie's sentencing as Mal was. However, Uma figured that Ben only needed one upset godling in his office at a time. Besides, Uma knew she could always rant to Harry while they sparred. "That's different, Uma," Mal said as she looked over her shoulder at her cousin. "You know perfectly well that the other angels would have gone after Celia and Haddie if we'd done that, and there would have been no way for us to put them on Olympus like we did here." Uma nodded slightly as she sat up, her arm resting on the back of the couch as she looked over at Ben.
"Mal, we can't just kill people we don't like,"
Ben said as he stood up from his desk chair.
"Yes, Freddy committed a crime, but the punishment needs to fit the crime. If we go overboard, then we start looking like tyrants."
Ben, you talk about the punishment suiting the crime, but you were all content to throw Freddy back on the Isle after he tried to kill you. An Isle which, by the way, is still the home to hundreds of kids. You've just gone ahead and put them in harm's way. But I guess not caring about the kids of the Isle is commonplace for a Libete.
"Oh, low blow,"
Harry muttered as a look of shock flashed across Ben's face before it clouded in fury.
"Don't you dare say I don't care about the children of the Isle, Mal. I care just as much as you do."
"Seriously? Because we had to practically twist your arm to get you to agree to an extra person this go around. If you had your way, Harriet would still be on the Isle right now."
"Just because I didn't see the harm in sticking with groups of 4 doesn't mean I don't care about the Isle. But you've told me hundreds of times about your gang. Can't they handle Freddy once he gets back?"
"They can, but it shouldn't be their responsibility to control that spawn of Satan. They should be packing and preparing to come here, to Auradon, because there's no reason in fighting to keep territory once Freddy's dead. The Angels would disband if that happened, and they're our biggest rivals since the casters just stick to their own headquarters when not getting food."
"So they can still come. Harry brought CJ back from the Isle."
"And did you ever stop to think why?"
"Because she's my sister, and I want to keep her safe, just like I wanted to keep Harriet safe,"
Harry muttered in Uma's ear. Sure, he wasn't happy with the fact that Freddy was still using up his allotted supply of oxygen, but he was at least content with sitting with Uma for the time being. Then again, Mal was more attuned to the deaths of the Isle, more attuned to the causes of those deaths. And no matter what, the Isle was still their home. You don't welcome a threat into your home. You eliminate it.
"Henry, you better not let us down," Harry thought. "Keep the crew safe. Don't let there be another Rick on your watch. The Angels will be motivated, now more than ever, once they get Freddy back. Keep a watch out for any siblings the crew has too." I still remember how Mal described Ryan after that dock stampede. "Look, it's over. We can't go back and re-sentence him. Not when he's probably halfway to the Isle by now."
"Maybe you can't, but give me 5 minutes and I can turn into my dragon form and—"
"I said no! God, why can't you just listen to me for once, Audrey?"
Ben exclaimed, slamming the palms of his hands onto the top of his desk as he stood up to be face to face with Mal. The room grew completely silent as the words left Ben's lips. His face went pale as he realized what he said, whereas Mal's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. Harry and Jay looked at each other, clearly unsure as to which side they should take. As much as they'd love to have Freddy be an ex-person, Ben did have a point. It was one of the reasons why Mal never went against Uma's orders, or vice versa, when dealing with the crew. It was important that they looked like a unified front, or else someone might try to play one against the other.
Okay,
Uma said as she quickly got up and slipped into the well-known role of captain.
"We're all tired, and we're all in pain. So, before we say anything we can't take back, let's take 5. Mal, for the love of Apollo, go get that arm checked out. You were blasted by the dragon's scepter. You've got to be in pain. Bernie, go take a nap or something."
A knock on the door prevented either Mal or Ben from responding. as Jay went over to open the door. Aunt Alethea? What are you doing here? Mal asked, looking at the goddess. While she may not have been on good terms with Demeter, Mal had quickly gained a friendship with Persephone's sister. Maybe it was because of the fact that Alethea had helped get the hospital set up on the Isle, with a prenatal unit that rivaled Auradon's. Maybe it was because Alethea didn't try immediately latch on and pretend like they had a familial relationship. Or maybe it was just because of the fact that Alethea was kinda cool compared to the other gods of Olympus. I mean, she had a peacock feather in her hair. Forgive my intrusion, but Queen Belle said I might find you here, Melinda. Is everything okay? Did something happen with Hattie? Alethea shook her head as she walked into the office. No, your brother's fine. He's been spending his time on Olympus tormenting Zeus. Good boy, Uma and Mal said at the same time, Estelle yipping softly as if to agree with them. Well, if Hattie's not hurt or anything, why are you here? I mean, don't get me wrong, Aunt Alethea. It's great to see you, Mal said, the slight smile turning to a look of confusion. Alethea sighed and pulled out a rather large book. Where she was keeping it, no one really knew, but there wasn't time to question it. I'm sure you know that Auradon has a registry of children born on the Isle of the Lost.
Oh, yes, we know it well, Uma nodded.
Well, we gods also have a registry, Alethea said, speaking as if Uma had not commented. This one keeps track of every child, and is updated as soon as the baby comes into existence, even before mortal tests have the ability to see the child. Wait, so does that mean? Alethea nodded and flipped the book open, turning to a specific page before handing it to Ben. My sister informed me of the developments, King Ben, of what you are waiting on, so I thought it prudent if I checked the registry myself.
But Persephone wasn't Zeus there? Uma asked. He's on Benny's council after all.
Mal nodded. Yeah, he was there. As silent as ever, though now I know that Hattie's been tormenting him. That does explain the blue in his beard.
Ah, what a pleasant image. Someone other than Audrey getting pelted with smoke bombs, Uma said with a small grin.
Ben sighed
and looked up from the book. Audrey's pregnant.
Dear gods,
Lonnie sighed. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Lady Alethea, Ben said as he closed the book, handing it back to the goddess. If you'll excuse me.
Of course, King Ben, Alethea nodded. Ben? Mal asked, but Ben shook his head and got up, walking out of his office without saying a word to Mal or the others. As if his body was on autopilot, he made his way to his dorm and shut the door, locking it as if to prevent anyone from coming in. He knew it wouldn't prevent Jay or Amir from coming in, but it would be a deterrent at the very least. Plus, he'd hear them try to pick the lock and be able to scurry out the window. The rage he had been suppressing all this time was bubbling to the surface, and this time, he wasn't sure if he wanted to keep it suppressed. He was still a teenager, wasn't he? Couldn't he lose control for once? Before he realized what was happening, his phone flew out of his hand and shattered into pieces as it connected with the stone wall. Sinking to his knees, Ben finally let himself feel the hurt he'd been denying himself.
Audrey's pregnant. This isn't over,
he muttered as he wrapped his arms around himself, giving himself what he thought counted as a hug.
This'll never be over.
Not for the first time that night. He cursed the fact that he had taken up his father's crown. But it was too late to do anything now. This was his responsibility.
Okay, talk to Aurora and Philip. It's only fair that they know. Oh, gods. That baby. Audrey may have been stripped of her titles, but I know the child won't be. They're innocent in all this. Why should they be denied their...
Ben's head shot up as he realized one very important aspect of that whole mess. With Philip Jr. being the next in line for the throne of Auroria, there would need to be someone behind him. And, right now, the only person after him in that line of succession was Freddy's child.
I really need to talk to Aurora and Philip,
Ben thought with a sigh, running his hand through his hair. As much as Ben knew they would love their grandchild, they also loved their kingdom, and there was no way they would want Freddy Frollo to have even one glimpse of power. Nor would they want their grandchild potentially used as a pawn for Freddy to escape the Isle once more. Ben could only pray that it didn't come to that. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh god, what a horrible fight. But one thing I will say, couples do fight, and it's healthy that they do. Mal and Ben both have very passionate opinions, and sometimes that passion's not going to agree. While calling her by Audrey's name was beyond a low blow, sometimes things come out when you're angry. And like they said, how long was that day? That day's lasted a flippin' week. They haven't slept, they're all in pain. And frankly, when the chips are down, things come to the surface. I'm not saying that it's good, but I'm saying that it's understandable. As Ben said, they're still teenagers. And speaking of, oh god, Ben, how much pain were you denying yourself? Poor boy's been through the ringer, and he's not let himself feel it because he has to be a leader. Oh, I feel so sorry for him. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.